the competitive season is over, and this season the Pokemon Company did something a little bit different. They, I think only in March, announced Ace Trainer rewards. So basically they said that anyone in North America, Europe, or Oceania, they left Latin America out, which to my understanding was not a surprise to any players in Latin America. There's a whole conversation to be had there. I'm sure that someone else is far better suited to lead than I am. But anyone in those regions who accumulated 200 championship points would be designated an Ace Trainer, and there were some kind of rewards that came with that. Let me see. Don't really remember. Here we go. Rewards. Celebratory fanfare card, a Pokemon TCG promo card previously exclusive to Asia, and exclusive deck boxes and sleeves. And I think this was a really smart idea for Pokemon to go with, because 200 championship points might not sound like a lot if you are watching a lot of other content creators in the space, but to a lot of players, it actually is a lot of championship points, and it gives something to aim for players who are not at the level where they're competing for a world spot. I myself, on this channel, I sometimes question the value of this channel, honestly, because I'm not playing at the same kind of level as an Aaron Zhang or James Beck or Justin Tang, and I don't think I'm ever going to, most likely. But one thing that I try to do here that I hope has some value to it is give a little bit of a different perspective on the game from those players who are going to events all the time and competing for those world spots and playing the game at that elite level. I, of course, live in, let's just say, one of the smaller and poorer provinces of Canada. There are no local events in my area, nor the broader surrounding region. So even if I wanted, well, I do want to go to locals. It's not an even if, but I don't have any to go to unless I'm traveling for a while. Like maybe if I'm in Toronto for a couple weeks, I could go to locals, but in my day-to-day life, not an option. Major tournaments, I pretty much have to fly every single time. I can save some money if it's in Toronto because I have family there and whatnot, but otherwise it's not an inexpensive trip for me. It always feels a little bit silly to me when people complain about VGC being pay to win because you have to buy multiple games and DLC and so on, because that costs a lot less than I spend any one time I travel to a major tournament. So I only make it to about 2 or 3 of those a year. And even then, that I even do that much means that I'm prioritizing them some amount with my money and my time off. So necessarily I have a little bit of a different perspective, and I don't generally feel like qualifying for Worlds is my goal because it doesn't feel realistic to me. And because I have limited opportunities to practice and improve as a player, this was my 3rd competitive season, and going into this one, I didn't even really have any expectation of ever earning any championship points. I actually did earn 5 championship points in 2023, which was my first competitive season. I think just in one of the global challenges. I don't even remember the details. I didn't notice that I'd earned the points until much, much later. And I got 35 points in the 2024 season, mostly because at the Toronto Regional that year, even though the main event was my weakest result so far, I played the mid-season showdown, as it was called then, on the Sunday, and actually got top 8. It's a fun little story in its own right, but yeah, 35 points, mostly because of that. But still, I went into the 2025 season thinking, alright, I'll go to a major or 2. I'll play online events if there are any. They always seem to be on weekends that I'm busy, but I'll do what I can. But I have no expectation that I'll even earn any championship points, much less... I mean, for other reasons, I wouldn't want to go to Worlds right now anyway, but that aside, obviously Ace Trainer rewards were announced late in the season, and so I was not thinking about them throughout the season. I might have made some different decisions as the season played out, had I known that they were going to do this, but it makes a lot of sense as a goal for players like me to aim for that is actually pretty realistic and attainable for us, and I did have it in mind in the later part of this season. So, did I hit that goal? Let's track my results. And of course, this channel has kind of followed my results over the course of the season regardless, but I haven't talked about everything at all points, and it's nice to have a reminder anyway. So my first opportunity to earn championship points this season Obviously, the season started in September. My first opportunity to earn points was the September Grand Challenge. So, how did that event go for me? It went pretty badly. I didn't play it at all because at the time I had moved recently and I couldn't find my copies of Scarlet and Violet. I have physical copies of both games. Violet is the one that I play events on anyway. I basically own Scarlet just for the sake of owning the other version and being able to go catch a Fluttermane and whatnot. That's not to say that I bought it for VGC. These days I buy both versions on release for those flagship generation games. But Violet's my main one. But in any case, I couldn't find either. I think I did the classic thing where, like, I packed them separately from the rest of my games in a spot that I thought I would remember, and so find more quickly and easily, and it had the opposite effect. And I was really worried for a moment there that they might be lost forever. They weren't. I found them, but I found them after the September Grand Challenge started, so not a great start to the season. But then came the October Grand Challenge, and at the time, I was really putting a little bit more time into this channel than I had done up to that point, something I've continued to do since then. I've luckily had the time for it. And at the time, I was doing something that I called Ghost Month. Throughout October, every week, I was building a team around a ghost-type Pokemon because it's my favorite Pokemon type, and exploring that Pokemon a bit on the ladder. So, swearing on the first one was Skeleturge, then I did one with Hisuian Zoroark, Gengar, because it's my favorite Pokemon, and then Typhlosion. Sorry, Hisuian Typhlosion, of course. And then, what season of the PDL is this? Oh, it's season 6. The only one where I wasn't the Masquerade Man. Wow. And then I did Mono Ghost team at the end. And I thought that team would be very bad, but it actually performed pretty well on the ladder. And so with the October Grand Challenge coming up a little bit before Halloween, I thought, you know what? It'll be fun if I bring Mono Ghost to that challenge. It'll be an appropriate little Halloween-themed gimmick. I'm not really expecting much in terms of results, but this team seems to be better than I thought it would be. And, you know, maybe it'll bring some joy to my opponents to fight a bunch of ghosts on Halloween or something. Well, I don't know if it brought very much joy to my opponents. This was the team. It was built primarily around the extremely specially bulky bulk-up Terrafire Annihilate, with the goal of setting this up, preventing opponents from removing it, and breaking through their team with it. And that was actually pretty effective in Regulation H. I had the screen Sableye, of course, the Sinistcha able to switch in and keep Annihilate healthy, and then usually the fourth Pokemon was Basculegion. Sometimes I led with it, but far more often I had it in the back, because that was a good offensive pressure piece in some situations. It could clean up a late game. In fact, that was its most common role. But also, in some matchups, I could lead it with Annihilate, and Basculegion would command their attention because it was threatening more damage immediately, and that would create openings for Annihilate to set up. But more often I led Annihilate with Sableye, I'd set up the screens, I'd look for an opening to switch Sinistcha in. And then Zoroark and Typhlosion did not end up bringing very much to the table. This team kind of had one mode that I spammed the vast majority of the time. I brought Typhlosion sometimes against like Trick Room teams where I wanted that big eruption damage into them, but it was by far the least used Pokemon on this team. Zoroark ended up mostly being a Dondozo matchup piece, where like the idea was I would try to burn the Dondozo with Will-O-Wisp, and I'd have the Focus Sash to take a hit, but it was more like, in the end, it was more like Zoroark was just useful as a special attacker to remove an opposing Glamora without activating Toxic Debris, before I went to a grindy endgame with usually Sinistcha and Annihilate against the Dondozo. But that was an extremely fun Grand Challenge run, and despite my expectations being fairly low, it really set the tone for the season because it was actually my most successful official online event to date. I have a video about it here, titled Mono Ghost got top 256 in the October Grand Challenge, which gives away how the team did. I believe I play a Limitless tournament with it in this video after talking about the team a little bit in more depth. But it was an excellent Grand Challenge run. I played some really good players too. I think I played Joe Ugarte and I lost to him. But I beat Wolf Glick in that run. I remember I hacked him somehow. I think it was with Sableye Thunderwave. And I really slept on Sableye as a Grand Challenge piece, by the way, because opponents definitely... I could tell from the way opponents played against it that they didn't know what to expect when I led Sableye. Because, of course, it has a lot more options than just Reflect and Light Screen. But that would create openings to get the screen set up, and then Annihilate could set up and roll through their team. I think I got some full paras against Wolf Glick, but it was my first time ever playing him, and I won. And I played some other notable players too. I don't remember who now. But yeah, top 256 got me 50 championship points. So immediately already more than I had ever... More than the cumulative total that I had gotten in my previous 2 seasons. And a quarter of the way to Ace Trainer rewards, although I didn't know about Ace Trainer rewards yet. Excellent start to the season. Next, of course, was the November Grand Challenge. Just kidding, there wasn't one. I thought that there was one when I locked in a monotype team for October. I thought, oh, I'll take the next one more seriously. But then I actually did really well by my standards in October, and there wasn't a November one, so I got kind of hoodwinked there, but also it worked out just fine. Next was the December Grand Challenge, and at that point I was gearing up for the Toronto Regional. I have my video on the Toronto Regional here. I put it in the cards and like everything these days because it's my personal favorite video that I've done. It is a rare time that I took the time to write out a script and whatnot. I am not reading a script right now, as you can probably tell. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing this little recap of the Toronto Regional, and I enjoyed the event quite a lot as well. And of course, if you know already the narrative of that video, you know that early in Regulation H, I built a team around Superior because it's my favorite starter Pokemon. Hence the title here. I took my favorite starter Pokemon to a major VGC tournament, and I spent a while playing Limitless tournaments with that team, practicing it, refining it, actually getting some pretty decent results here and there as I improved the team over time. And then by the time it was late in Regulation H and I had an official major tournament coming up, I tried to pick up what I considered to be a more serious team. I tried a few different options, and I just didn't know my lines as well with any of them. I was more familiar with the Superior team, and I knew that I could just get wins with the Superior team sometimes. And so even though it felt on paper, it seemed on paper like a weaker option that I should probably put away, you know, in my toy box while I grew up and played more serious teams at that point, it was what I was most comfortable with. And so I took it to Toronto, and well, first I used it in the December Grand Challenge, and I don't remember exactly. I think I have a screenshot somewhere. Maybe I can find it on my phone. I did not play very many games in the December Grand Challenge, but I had a very good start. Again, I think because I just knew this team so well, and knew exactly what I had cooked, especially with the Stellar, Contrary, Terrablast, Superior, being able to snowball against the Archaludon Rain teams that were still fairly popular at the time. Superior honestly kind of was my Archaludon answer on this team, which was a little bit questionable, but it worked often enough to get me some decent results. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find the screenshot. I think I've scrolled too far back, not that you can see my phone right now, but yeah, I was doing I remember I won I started with a few wins in a row at least, and I was ranked very high, you know, very early on in the competition when it didn't matter. Oh, I found it. Yeah, I hit 1630 rating in 11 games, number 5 on the ladder. And then I think I took a handful of losses and I stopped playing, and I ended up not going back to it. But even so, off of that hot start with my very familiar Reg H team that I was building up for a major tournament, I placed 552nd overall, so top 1024, a little bit outside of top 512. So I definitely lost some rating from that peak of about 1630. I think I ended with a couple of losses, and then I stopped playing. If I'd known about Ace Trainer rewards, maybe I would have played some more to get back into that top 512 spot, but I still got 20 championship points for that, so at this point I had a total of 70. Pretty good start. Again, well, twice as many as the previous season, and it was early yet. And then, of course, I still had the Toronto Regional to go to. I used the Superior team. I got top 256. I went 5-3, so narrowly missed out on day 2. Thanks to some very tough opponents who got the better of me just enough times. But top 256 was still good for some championship points. And what's more, also covered in this video, I entered the Cup on the Sunday, which was best of 1 Swiss, and then best of 3 top cut, with an updated version of the Mono Ghost team from the October Grand Challenge. I don't know if this is exactly right. I definitely changed Sinistra's Terra type from Dark to Fairy to improve the Dondozo matchup, because Sinistra was Because Dondozo was a rough matchup, and Sinistcha was the key to doing anything about it, just being able to sit there and click Strength Sap. And so I didn't want Dondozo to be able to spam Order Up back into Sinistcha. When I played a Dondozo, there were a lot of turns where Sinistcha just clicked Strength Sap, and Annihilate next to it usually clicked Protect whenever that was safe. So Terra Fairy was specifically an anti-Dondozo tech. I think I made some changes to the Zoroark set, but then undid them. So this Zoroark is unchanged, and I think that is correct. I did realize the night before the cup that Stellar was almost certainly the better Terra type, but I couldn't be bothered to make the change at that point. And I do believe it is right that I changed Hisuian Typhlosion from Terra Fairy to Terra Fire, because I wasn't really using the Fairy Terra type anyway. I was, of course, had Dark types in mind when I gave it that Terra type, but with Annihilate, I was finding that, and Basket Legion to an extent, because of how it checked Incineroar, I was finding that the team was not really that afraid of Dark types anyway, and Typhlosion was better off just going for as much damage as possible, although again, Typhlosion was by far the Pokemon I brought least often on this team. That cup run is also covered in this video, so if there are any mistakes in that team sheet, it will probably be explained in here somewhere. But yeah, I got top 4 in the cup. I caught a lot of opponents off guard, I think, with the specially bulky Annihilate in Swiss. I went in there thinking I'd probably get a decent Swiss result, but not quite make top cut, but I did make top cut, and I won my top 8 set, and then I went out in top 4 against the eventual winner. I think officially I got 3rd place in the cup. That's what my trainer club page, or my play, what is it called? My play Pokemon page says. So in total, I got, according to my notes here, 60 championship points for top 256 in the regional, and then another 32 for top 4 in the cup, bringing me to a total of 162 championship points. It is still calendar year 2024 at this point. Ace Trainer rewards have not been announced yet, and I am more than 3/4 of the way there. So it's looking pretty promising, right? But then we head back to Regulation G, which was a format that I certainly always found harder than Reg H, and what's more, not really having a goal to work toward, I thought that there wasn't a whole lot left to build on in my season. I had enjoyed Reg H a lot. I was not that enthusiastic about Reg G. I didn't have any more major tournaments coming up. At the time, when the calendar flipped to 2025, I thought that, you know, maybe I'll go to NAIC, maybe I'll do something, but I don't have any specific plans right now. And then over time, for reasons that are best addressed elsewhere, I became unwilling to travel to the United States. It'll probably be at least a few years before I'm going to any events in the US again. And there was a Vancouver regional, but that's very far away, and it just didn't work out for me for offline life reasons. Every year I think about going to Vancouver, and then I always go, oh, but it's so far away. That's such an awkward trip for a weekend. But I think some year I'll probably take like a week-long vacation to Vancouver and go to a regional while I'm there. Maybe. Right now I just think about it every year and then say, nah, it's too much. So no more major tournaments to go to, but still 5 online events left. The first one was the January Grand Challenge, and that one kind of crept up on me. I was busy with other things, partly putting time into this channel. And so I didn't really find it in me to build a Regulation G team for the event. And so fortunately, because Regulation G was a unique format, I had a team ready-made already. Unfortunately, that team was very outdated. And this is, of course, a team that I... No, not this one. This is, of course, a team that I can take no credit for. It is the team that I used at NAIC last year, but I copied it completely from Grant Weldon, who is a player who had been working with Zacian and Regidrago for a while. Ended up making top cut at Worlds last year with an updated version of this team. But this was the version that he had used at a regional shortly before NAIC last year. And because I was really struggling to find any team that I liked in Reg G, this one got my attention. I just quickly tried out his rental on the ladder. I liked the team. I trained an exact copy of it, and this is what I took to NAIC last year. I have multiple videos on that tournament. Here's one where I ladder with the team that I ended up taking to the event. My recollection is that this was not a very convincing ladder session, but I had a better one on the cartridge ladder the night that I first found the team. And so I was reasonably confident in it, and I went 5-4 at the event, which was, at the time, my best result so far, now my second best because of Toronto. So it held up pretty well at that time. I also have this one where I do an actual recap of my tournament run. I definitely had a lot of fun there. But anyway, what was I saying? Right. But this team was a lot less current and had a lot more issues in the format come January. And it at least had the benefit of being a familiar team, but because I had not updated it at all, I could only pilot it so well. And I believe I got, well, it says in my notes here that I got top 1024. Not bad, but not as good as I had done with a monotype team back in Reg H. And that brought me to a total of 172 championship points. Next was the February Grand Challenge. I'm going to tell you now, I did not earn any points from that. I don't have the paste or the open team sheet to show because apparently I just never properly filled out that team in my builder. I just had it in my head when I was working on it in game. But I was on a bit of a Mewtwo kick at the time. I made a short with Mewtwo, and then the battles actually went really well. Mewtwo was actually kind of killing it in those games. So I expanded it into a whole video where the cracks in the concept started to show. But nonetheless, I wanted to try Mewtwo. It's such a cool classic Pokemon, and it's not popular in the format, and for good reason, because it was actually very bad. Yeah, this Mewtwo team was unfortunately not it. The team that I used, like I said, I don't have it in my builder, but it was very similar to this. I think it was probably about the same, except that I changed the Flutter Mane to Tornadus, because I thought I might need Tailwind for speed control. I am not happy with that change. I think Tornadus was very awkwardly positioned in the team, and pretty early in the run I stopped bringing it. I think Flutter Mane would have been better, but the bigger problem was just that Mewtwo was just not strong enough. Like, a lot of why people are not interested in running Mewtwo right now, I mean, there is that Mewtwo Eternatus team that at time of recording I used recently in a video, but Mewtwo is an offensive piece. A lot of its issue is that it's just not as good as Shadow Rider Calyrex. It has like 4 more base attack, I think, but it's, sorry, best special attack, but it's slower. It doesn't have the ghost typing. It doesn't have the abilities. It has a lot of issues. But Mewtwo was honestly just not holding up as a Pokemon, even in absolute terms, not just relevant terms, relative terms in that challenge. Like, it was missing a lot of important KOs. And yeah, I had the Specs Chi-Yu, partly to try to boost Mewtwo's damage with the Beads of Ruin, but it was pretty hard to position them together, and Mewtwo was just not getting the KOs I needed throughout the run. I believe I finished with slightly more losses than wins in that one. I was fighting for my life in the low to mid 1400s at some points, and I did climb out of that hole, but I did not climb into championship point range. And I think Ace Trainer rewards were announced a little bit after that, so now we're at the point where it's a known thing. And I thought, man, why did I use Mewtwo at that challenge? I wouldn't have done that if I had a competitive goal to work toward. Oh well. Next was the March Global Challenge. I think I said Grand Challenge for the last two. They were, of course, Global Challenges. The March Global Challenge, and again, I didn't really have time to cook, but I at least had a serious team that I was interested in. It was this one from an event in Europe. I meant to check which one. But it was used by a Spanish player in... I can find out, actually, from my own video on it. Hang on. I think it'll be in the description. Oh, it was from EUIC. I thought it was a regional. No, it's from EUIC. Yeah, this team did well at EUIC with Ability Shield Koraidon and Galarian Weezing, and then Dondozo stuff, and then these two special attacker buddies benefiting from Koraidon's Sun. I found it a pretty intriguing team. I made 2 videos about it, I think. There was this one where I tried it out on the ladder, and then there was this one right after where I used it in a Limitless tournament, and not feeling quite done with it yet, I used it in the Global Challenge as well. I believe I was on Justin Tang's stream with this team, actually. I found out later, someone DM'd me to let me know that Justin Tang had been streaming his run and had played me. He crushed me with an Ability Shield Tornadus that I did not see coming at all. But overall, it was an okay run, not the best. I think I was busy this weekend. I think I was even out of town, but I took my Switch with me and played where I got the chance. And I once again finished in the top 1024, just like not the previous global challenge, but the first one. And that got me to 182 championship points. My Play Pokemon page says right now that I got 1,000 first place, which is a little bit disappointing to me because right after the event, when the points were first being assigned, it said that I was number 1,000 exactly, and that just felt like a very pleasant round number. 1,001 is okay, I guess, but yeah, I miss being number 1,000. Truly the Goldango of that global challenge, but now, I guess that's only among Western players, also TPCI players, 1,000 excluding Asian players. What's Pokemon number 1,000? Is it Wo-Chien? Am I the Wo-Chien of that global challenge? I'll find out and put it in the thumbnail if I am. Next was the April global challenge, and at this point I knew about Ace Trainer rewards, and I thought, okay, there are 2 global challenges left. I'm at my best finished limit for top 1024, which means in Pokemon it is really hard to find information on the best finish limits. I actually don't think I knew this at the time, and I found out when I didn't get points after the event. No, that's not correct. I don't know what happened in April. Only your best end results in each kind of competition count, with N depending on what kind of competition it is. So there's a limit to how many regionals count toward your point total. There's a limit for locals. There's a limit for online events. Not usually something I have to worry about because I don't play very many major tournaments, and I play like 1 local ever if I'm at a regional that has them as side events. But with so many online events in this format, I did actually hit my best finish limit for top 1024. This was definitely not on my radar right away. It is, like I said, really, I wasn't used to thinking about them, but also it is weirdly hard to find information on the best finish limits. I tried when I was figuring out what I needed for Ace Trainer status to look up best finish limits, and there are so many information pages like on the Play Pokemon website and so on that say there is a best finish limit, but I gave up trying to find a page that just lays out exactly what they are. That must exist somewhere, but I found it bizarrely hard to find. That said, I was not capped out on top anything better than 1024. So if I got top 512 in both events, that would, I think, have been enough. Or I could get top 256 in one of the remaining online challenges. And so for the April Global Challenge, I thought, okay, I'm going to take some time. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to cook an interesting, creative Regulation G team, and I'm going to try to get at least a top 512 finish, and that gives me something to build on for the last Grand Challenge in May. And that is not what I did. I don't remember what I was doing with my time, but I did not take the time to cook a team at all. I had nothing new and interesting ready when the challenge arrived, and I just used the Grant Weldon team again, which was even more outdated by this point, and a really tough... really tough to make this team work at this point, even more than in January. I badly wanted Play Rough on the Zacian, Covert Cloak on the Whimsicott in some positions. Encore on the Whimsicott would have been incredible in some positions, but I was still running Cotton Spore because I had made 0 changes to the team. I actually played Wolf Glick again in this one. In fact, if you were a Wolf Glick Patreon subscriber, this is the one where he used Eternatus, and he uploaded the footage on Patreon, and he plays me around the 2-hour mark, I think. And it's so funny to watch back his perspective. Obviously, he's thinking the game on a far higher level than I am, but Wolf is... He recognizes the concept of the team, but of course he doesn't know that it's the exact one from almost a year ago at this point. I mean, even if he could spot that, he can't trust that I haven't made any changes. What kind of player would make no changes to a year-old team? So throughout the video, he's covering for things that I don't have, but would be a lot more threatening to him if I did. And he keeps saying, I think there's a moment where he's like, oh no, I think I've lost, but okay, if they do this, that's how I can get back into the game. And I'm watching and I already know I'm going to do that. So it is really funny to watch myself get destroyed by Wolf Glick, which is what happened. I beat him in October, but not in April. And I thought I had gotten top 1024, My page now says I was a little bit short of that, but in any case, no points. And it wouldn't have been, I wouldn't have gotten points anyway. So that meant that the May Grand Challenge was the only thing left. That was my last opportunity to earn championship points this season. I was at 182. And according to my math, that meant that I would become an ace trainer if I got top 256 or better. And if not, that was it. No ace trainer for me. Top 256 or better. And now it was time to finally cook. This is not a bait and switch this time. I did actually take the time to come up with a team. And at this point, I was spamming shorts on the ladder where I threw teams together on a whim. And I was actually kind of enjoying the hard trick room ones. I don't usually think much about hard trick room in restricted formats, partly because I'm just not willing to reset my game to get 0 speed static encounter legendaries. There are a lot of tedious things in Pokemon that I really don't mind doing, but for some reason that's where I draw the line and I just won't do it. So in the past I've typically thought, okay, I will just not play hard trick room in restricted formats. Even if it's the best comp there is, it's just not for me. But in early Reg I was kind of liking hard trick room on Showdown, and I also was thinking, there are so many fast offensive teams running around. I don't think I need min-speed legendaries. I think I'll be okay. I can make my other Pokemon min-speed. That's pretty easy. I have min-speed Pokemon on the PC. I can just breed them. I can do a chain if I need to. I think I'm going to be okay if my legendaries are not min-speed. I won't hyper-train their speed, but I don't have to worry that it's specifically 0. And, while I won't get into the details because of content blackouts on this channel, there had been some developments in the Reg I metagame before the May Grand Challenge that led me to think I was probably going to see a lot of Miraidon teams. And I might see Ho-Oh pop up here and there, but certainly a lot of Miraidon. Miraidon was having a moment, and I thought it was going to be very popular in the challenge. And so originally, actually, I was thinking I was going to bring some kind of Zamazenta Shadow Rider team to the Grand Challenge. That's an important part of the story that I forgot to say until just now. I like Zamazenta Shadow Rider as a concept. It, I think, fits my playstyle pretty reasonably well, and it's a type of team that's just very solid, has a lot of playable matchups, good for improving my positional game. That's what I was planning to build. And then Miraidon was really popping off, and I was like, okay, maybe I want something that a little bit more directly counters that, but also kind of feels like Ho-Oh is having a moment. I don't know what my Ho-Oh matchup is with Zamazenta Shadow Rider. I've never thought about that, and on paper it doesn't look good. So I thought, okay, I'm going to run Trick Room Team. I'm going to run, you know, Ice Rider in DD stuff, and that way into Miraidon I can lead in DD, change the terrain, set up Trick Room, threaten it with Glacial Lance. Miraidon's having a bad day. And so this was the team that I came up with, I think. I did not have it in my builder just now, but I reconstructed it from memory. It's possible that some of the Terra types are a little bit off. There was some common Smeargle move that I wasn't running. I think it was Fake Out. It might have been Follow Me, but I made room for Decorate. I think I should have, in hindsight, I should have dropped Wide Guard. But I think this is what I did. And so my restricted duo was Ice Rider Calyrex and Dawn Wings Necrozma. Now, Dawn Wings Necrozma was a little bit of a mistake on my part. By which I mean it did okay in the challenge. What I mean is, one of my reasons for choosing it was mistaken. It is slower than Lunala. Its base speed is like 20 points lower. And I thought that with Moongeist Beam, I could knock out Lunala through Shadow Shield. I did not realize until I had already started playing the Grand Challenge that Shadow Shield ignores the ability ignoring effect of Moongeist Beam. Shadow Shield is an unignorable ability, is an easier way to say that. I don't know if all these Terra types are exactly right. It was definitely Terra Grass Necrozma. I felt very good about that defensively in some matchups, again, including against Miraidon sometimes, and not great about it in others, but it was very handy into opposing Spore, like Brute Bonnet stuff, for example. Definitely Ghost Ursaluna, definitely Fire Torkoal. Not 100% sure about the others. I think it was Grass and Indeedee. But this was the team. It was, yeah, hard Trick Room. And Ice Rider Calyrex and Dawn Wings Necrozma were a very strong duo. Ursaluna put in a lot of work. Torkoal was really good in some matchups. I didn't bring Smeargle very often. It was definitely the Pokemon I brought least. But it absolutely popped off when I brought it. Decorate into Ice Rider Calyrex is so powerful. I feel like if I'd gotten more practice in and been more comfortable with the team, I could have brought Smeargle a lot more often than I did. And the results would probably have justified it. Because it was amazing when I did bring it, but I just didn't have that comfort level and didn't bring it very often. But mostly I just tried to set Trick Room and overwhelm opponents with Indeedee helping with that, and overwhelm opponents with Ice Rider, Dawnwings Necrozma, and Ursaluna. And that worked very well for the most part. In fact, 5 hours before the end of the challenge, I was inside the top 256. Not by very much, but if I stayed in that position, my goal would be met. And so I stopped playing for that. But 5 hours left to go. Of course, players jockeying for position. I was pretty sure that I would slide out of the top 256. At least I thought there was a good chance. And so I checked back 1 hour before the end of the event, 4 hours after I had left off, and I had fallen to, I don't remember, like 280 or so. So I was going to have to play a little bit more to get that result up. I had gotten inside the range that I wanted on the last day, 5 hours before the end, but it was going to take a little bit more. So I got another game, and I lost. And I got another game, and I lost. And in total, I played like 6 or 7 more games in that last hour, and I won one of them. That's the short version. I don't remember exactly what order things happened in, but like, grand challenges and global challenges are such chaos. If you don't play them, you've probably heard players talk about them. They're best of one, closed team sheet, people bring weird texts, you never know what you're going to run into, and I swear that last hour of that grand challenge, maybe I wasn't playing at my best, because I wasn't in a rhythm like I had been earlier in the day, but I don't remember exactly what I was playing against. I remember thinking it felt like a gauntlet of a bunch of my worst matchups all in a row. And I think I got hexed once or twice too. But I'm not trying to make excuses here. I did well in the challenge up to that point. I positioned myself to have a real shot to reach my goal. And then I ended on a really nasty losing streak. And I finished my season. No more online challenges, no events to go to. 182 championship points. I am not an ace trainer. I did not reach that 200 point threshold. But you know what? It's been a really fun season, and I got a lot more championship points than I thought I would going in. I would have been happy in September if you told me, even though I did get championship points the previous season on a couple of occasions, I would have been happy still if you told me that I would get any at all this season. I don't take these things for granted. I'm not a top player, and like I said, I live in an area where opportunities to play in officially sanctioned competitions are very, very limited. It kind of is what it is. I don't want to complain about it much. There's only so much they can do, right? You can only, I'm all for growing the game. Realistically, it can only spread so far, and there are going to be some barriers for some people. I don't really begrudge people who have locals to go to every weekend or a regional that they can drive to once or twice a year. But the reality is that I'm kind of isolated from a lot of that, and I get limited opportunities. And 182 championship points is, like I said, 182 more than I expected before the season. So I'm not an ace trainer. I don't get any nice rewards from the Pokemon Company, International, or whoever it is. The story ends a little bit anticlimactically. I got to 182 points all the way in March, and then gained no more after that, all the way through the end of the season in August. But I wanted to do a little recap of the journey because I really enjoyed it, and I think, if I keep this going, nobody knows right now what next season's going to be like, at least at the time that I'm recording this in June, but I think if I keep pushing next season, who knows what could happen. I really feel like I was close to making Day 2 in Toronto, and I think my next event, or maybe the one after, a Day 2 could happen. And I think that if I take online challenges a little bit more seriously and cook a little bit harder for them, I could start to see some different results there too. I really feel like even though I don't really have a card I can show you that says, yes, I am a pretty good player, I feel like I'm getting somewhere with this, and more importantly than that, I'm enjoying it and learning and having fun. And ultimately, someone's going to be the world champion every year, but for the vast majority of players, this is a big part of what matters. I don't know if I could say it's the most we can ask for, but it matters a lot. And so I wanted to acknowledge it here. I'm not an ace trainer, but definitely still a super nerd. And I don't think that's changing anytime soon. Okay, one more thing that I meant to do in the initial recording and completely forgot, but have now remembered during editing. This is something that I've seen far more accomplished players do at the end of a season sometimes. This is every Pokemon with which I earned any championship points, sorted by how many championship points they participated in earning. Ignore the untiered Pokemon at the bottom. I used an every Pokemon tier list for this, but I only used so many to get championship points. You can see 82, 80, 20, and 10. So Chi-Yu in its own tier because it was on 2 different teams that got 10 points each, with no repeated teammates otherwise. And although the superior team got me my first ever points from a major official tournament, the Ghosts actually got me the most championship points all season because they did so very well in both of their 2 appearances. I don't think it's hard to tell, by the way, which Scarlet and Violet format has been my favorite so far. It's kind of spelled out right here in this image, but genuinely, I've really enjoyed all of them. I like this game.